Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week in review. I think this is week 22, but I don't know. Either way, I'm going to quickly talk over my poses, as usual, first, and then I'll get into what I did this week, which was a lot of torso practice. So in general this week, as I'm looking through these, I'm going to try and focus on this sort of central body mass, because that's kind of what I was working on this past week. I think I learned a lot, but it might not necessarily apply to these kind of poses, you know? So let's look at these, hey? Nothing really to say as usual. I did notice that partway through the week, my lines became really faint. Kind of like this. Not this day, but I think the next day in particular. This one's pretty good, hey? I like this one. And I think that's because I changed my hotkeys from Control Z and Control Y. Control, undo and redo. I changed it to Q and R. So my left hand is a lot more relaxed now, which is nice. It used to hurt. I think I did this one pretty good too, hey? Foreshortening is really hard. That's something I'm gonna need to focus on more as time goes on, I think. This next day here, see how they became very faint? I think this is the day I changed my hotkeys. And I think what that did is it kind of relaxed my left hand, and then my right hand also relaxed in turn. So my hands have been feeling really good this week. That's kind of all I really want to talk about in terms of this pose practice stuff. I don't really have anything specific to say. Same thing as usual, balance is looking good. Everything is looking good with the poses as usual. But my hands don't hurt at all this week. I drew for like 5 hours on Saturday and I think 6 hours, 7 hours maybe on Sunday, and my hands are totally fine. So I think I've accidentally fixed the issue that I was having with my hands. Because every now and then they would start to hurt, I think I was grabbing my hands or my pen a little too hard. And really ramming because my keyboard's a little small, so I have to kind of twist my hand to do Control Z. So putting it on Q and R really helped me relax my hands. These are really good. I like this one. Again, with the foreshortening, This sort of distance is hard for me to get across, the distance between these 2 points. As for how far away they are from the camera, that sort of thing. I like a lot of these. And again, I was practicing the sort of torso pelvis this week. So we'll get into that a little bit here, We'll get into that in a little bit here. I can't even speak. Just want to quickly look over these. A lot of these are really good, like this one too, hey? Was this a 90-second? That's pretty good for a 90-second, As usual, I don't have anything to say when I'm looking at these. It's cool to look back at them. I feel like I'm really improving. This sort of thing. This high angle I really practiced this week. I feel like I know how to do that, now. I'm not really guessing anymore with that sort of thing. So there's my poses. Pretty cool, as usual. Let's look at my recap. So I did 100 of these, this sort of central body mass. I call it 100 torsos, but because my main focus was on the torso and kind of the connection of the torso to the rest of this stuff here. So kind of these lines on the side. And I figure I may as well just draw in the little leg stumps as well. So this was day one. I think it turned out pretty good. All days were pretty good. The red numbers are from reference and the blue is from imagination. So that's what they mean, the numbers. And for reference, I took real humans, The thing that I think I tried to do the most is kind of like this one, I tried to basically set up the torso and then I tried to find the rib cage. And you won't see it on all of them, especially not the ones from the back, but I usually tried to find that location and it might not always show it, right? I have it here, I don't have it here, that sort of thing. But I tried to find that and then I tried to find the center line, the belly button, and then the spine as well. I was trying to find how all those things kind of interact, and I was trying to keep the shoulders separate from the body. I find that sometimes I'm doing them a little too close, like this one. this shoulder could maybe be out a little further. It brings everything in too much if I have my shoulders too compact. So that was another thing I noticed as I was doing this practice. I think I noticed on day 2 that my shoulders are usually a little too compact. They can be out more. Not too much farther, but you know, like this one. They're a little too close to the neck. This one too, you know, there can be a little more space. So that's day 1. Let's look at day 2 here. So I'm trying to like separate them a little more, you know, pull them a little farther away this day. Same thing though, trying to find, basically I'm trying to think of how these torsos look rotated around in 3D space or whatever, you know, like what these lines would look like at different angles and at different situations, you know. I did a lot of this high angle stuff, so like this sort of thing, trying to think about how the lines from the pelvis connect to the belly at different kind of higher angles like this, and like thinking about how the shoulder blades and like the shoulders themselves and the neck are visible when you're kind of leaning toward the camera. That was also really hard, like this sort of thing. It took me a bit to get that, this sort of thing, you know. Again, the blue is from Imagination. I think I'm pretty happy with this one, right? It's pretty just simple, standard. Everything looks like it's in the right place, you know? And I feel like I really kind of accomplished that a few times, at least, this week, where some of these just turned out really good, like the ones from Imagination. Some of them were a little messy, right? Like, I found a lot of the time if I started a pose, and you know, like I had the shoulders or whatever done, and I was like, I didn't even have a clue of what I wanted to do below. It really helps to have an idea of what you're going to draw before you draw it. Otherwise, you'll become like a chicken nugget like this, right? So this was pretty fun. Another thing I was thinking about is how the lines of the leg kind of interact with everything else. Like they might not always be fully visible, or they might be like kind of pressing against this as the leg steps forward. And like this kind of thing, you know, there's a lot of little intricacies that I was thinking about, like overlapping lines, how this is coming above and then this is coming behind at this angle. Or like down here, this line is in front of this leg and it kind of blends into this one. I was trying to find where all these lines kind of interact with each other. So there's like a point of the rib cage here, you know, when it heads in. There's honestly a lot of notes that I gathered from this. Like this corner of the ribs, right? I found a lot of these poses, and like down here too. A lot of these poses, you'd find that corner poking out. And sometimes it's more apparent, like here, not so much. Here, not so much, but at least it's still there. And so it helps you kind of with the outer contour line, and like here sort of thing, right? It goes out and then it starts to come in from there. The pointing of the rib cage, I found is a consistent thing as I was looking at this reference. Let's look at the next day. This is the last day here. I found that consistently as being like helpful in measuring things, you know, finding that little point like here and then down, right? This sort of point. What else? I feel like there's a lot of things I haven't mentioned, you know. All in all, this was a pretty helpful practice, a lot more helpful than the 100 heads I think that I did. These collar or shoulder blades, I should say, not collarbones. I don't really know how they work. And there's my stomach grumbling. All in all though, what was I saying? Yeah, I found this more helpful than the 100 head practice because I think what I was trying to do with the 100 heads was stylize realistic, you know, reference. And so that kind of added another layer of difficulty to this, whereas in this practice I was just kind of drawing what I see, you know, this kind of thing. So it turned out really helpful. I feel like I learned a lot about the connection, particularly the connection between the pelvis, kind of the belly area, and the torso, which is good because that was my goal. You know, if you watched me before, I've always mentioned like I don't really know how they connect, you know, these lines on the side, how do I do those? I feel like I got some more insight into how to do that. So yeah, that's my 100 torso challenge, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then on the weekend I started doing some fan art here of some VTubers here, And I wound up, this was, I think 5 hours the first day. And then second day here, I did the line art and fixed up some things like the hand here I didn't do, or this hand, and I adjusted this, you know, I adjusted some things here and there. And then I did the color, and then I would like to do the shadow as well, and like touch up some things like this hair coloring is not correct, but so it's kind of 75% of the way done, I'll say. I'll probably work on this tomorrow and try to finish it. There's some other minor adjustments I want to make, but yeah, this is, oh, and I forgot to color her little ribbon here. This is Laplace Darkness and Akami Karubi as cops. Do I have anything else to say about this? Not really. It's not done yet, so there's a little more I need to do. I want to basically really spend a whole day on just thinking about the shadows and, you know, detail work. So I'm probably going to wind up doing that tomorrow. So that'll be fun. Aside from that, this is my my submission for this week's prompt. So the pose was like jogging or something. I didn't use the pose, but the word was bird. And I had an idea to draw this, and then I figured like, oh, Laplace has like a crow on her head sometimes, so I'll just shoehorn that in and say this is my submission for the prompt. So there you go. I'm pretty happy with how it is turning out so far. Like I think this hand looks really good, right? And I think I got Laplace's eyes very good. There's some things I don't like about it, but it's fine, you know. I always try to shoot for 60% of perfection, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, so I'm happy with where it's at. And yeah, I'll finish it up probably tomorrow, and then very productive week, I would say. And then this next week, I don't know what I'm gonna do, so I'll leave it there. Yeah, that's my week in review. Another week down here. I'll be back next week with another week in review, I guess, hey? I never know what to say at the end of these, so thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next week. Cut.